Are you a permanent resident dreaming of becoming a U.S. citizen? And you want to know how long do you have to wait before you can put in your application for citizenship? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you about the 3 timelines that you can potentially be on to become a citizen. The third one surprises people all the time, so stick around for that. I am U.S. Immigration Attorney Lillian Chukwurah, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenship for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. The first timeline that people will be on is the basic timeline, right? This is the basic eligibility timeline, which is having your green card for 5 years and then applying for citizenship, right? Most people are on this trajectory, and you just have to keep your green card, right? And follow all the things you need to make sure that you do not lose your green card for that 5 years. Another thing you need to pay attention to is you also not only have to have your green card for 5 years, you need to be physically present in the U.S., U.S. being your home, for at least 30 months. So that's half of the time, right? So when you are looking at, your travels outside of the U.S., don't just pay attention to how long you've had your permanent residency. Pay attention to how long you have been physically in the U.S., because that's what's going to determine if you qualify to apply for citizenship in 5 years. If you leave the U.S. and you're outside the U.S. for, let's say, 6 months, 7 months, and then you come back, you may still be able to apply for citizenship within that 5 years if you can show that the 6, 7 months that you were outside of the U.S., that you maintained a home in the U.S. Your intention was always to be back in the U.S., to have a home here, and you can document that decision, okay? Now, if you are outside of the U.S. for a year or more, just know that when you do come back to the U.S., that's when that 30 months starts counting again. So if you're outside of the U.S. for less than a year, you don't have to start over in counting your 5 years. If you are outside of the U.S. for a year or more, that 5 years starts all over again. So you really want to pay attention to not just how long you've had your permanent residency, but how long you have been physically in the U.S. and how long you have been outside of the U.S., because that can really mess up your timeline of how long you can become, how long until you can become a citizen. So really, really pay attention to your time outside of the U.S. as well. The second timeline that you can be on is if you are the spouse of a U.S. citizen. Spouses of U.S. citizens are able to apply for citizenship within 3 years of having their permanent residency versus everyone else. So if you're the child of a U.S. citizen, this does not apply to you. If you're the parent of a U.S. citizen, this does not apply to you. But if you are the spouse of a U.S. citizen and you have had your green card for 3 years, you may be able to apply for citizenship in 3 years instead of waiting 5 years like everyone else. With every exception with USCIS rules, there's of course things that you need to qualify for before you can actually apply in 3 years. So 3 years being the spouse of a U.S. citizen means that your spouse has been a U.S. citizen for those 3 years, and you two have been in a loving marital relationship for those 3 years, and you two are still in a marital relationship when you file, meaning you're still living together, you're still building a life together. Now let's talk about your spouse being a U.S. citizen part of it. So sometimes when you get your green card, your spouse may be on a green card, right? And then they eventually apply for citizenship and get citizenship. So what you need to look at is 3 years after you got your green card, have you two been living together? Have you two been in a marital relationship? Because you have to prove that. You also have to show that your spouse has been a U.S. citizen for that 3 years. That is a requirement. So if your spouse has only been a U.S. citizen for 2 out of the 3 years that you have had your green card, you cannot apply under this rule yet. However, once they hit that 3 years, now you meet the requirement, now you can apply. So really important to pay attention to that. So it's not just that you've been married to the person for 3 years, but that they were a U.S. citizen for those 3 years. Now let's talk about the third timeline that you can be on. And this is the timeline that surprises everyone because honestly, there's some immigration lawyers that don't even know this exists or that believes this exists. But I have seen it happen for my clients multiple times. So I can tell you with amazing confidence that this does exist and this can lead to you going from green card to immediately being able to apply for citizenship. Think about it. So the third way that you can become a citizen without waiting 5 years, right? Without waiting 3 years as the spouse of the U.S. citizen is by joining the military. The third timeline that you can be on is for people that join the military. So when you join the military as a green card holder, you can be able to apply for citizenship once you finish basic training. They will give you the military, right? Once you join the military, you follow all their guidelines and they know you're a permanent resident. Once you finish and meet their requirements, you can immediately apply for citizenship without waiting 3 years, without waiting 5 years. If you finish the requirements within like a few months of becoming a permanent resident, you can apply for citizenship. That is a special benefit for permanent residents joining the military. Is that you are able to apply for citizenship once you meet the military's requirement. They will even help you with the process of applying for citizenship, or you can apply for it on your own, and they will give you all the documentation you need to prove that you qualify under the military rule to become a citizen without waiting. Like, this is absolutely a game changer for people. If you already know you want to join the military, do it so that you can then immediately apply for citizenship. All right. So why is this rule so special? There's 2 reasons that this military rule is so special. Because 1, you can immediately apply for citizenship, right? Because you have your green card. But 2, and the most crazy part of this rule is that you do not have to wait to remove your conditions. So let's say you have a 2-year green card, you have to remove conditions before you can even apply for citizenship. With the military rule, if you join the military and you want to apply for citizenship, your requirement to file for removal of condition goes away. So remember, everyone that's married to a U.S. citizen got their green card based on their marriage to a U.S. citizen. If that marriage is under 2 years old when you get your green card, you are going to get a 2-year conditional residency, which is going to require you to not have to apply to remove your conditions after 2 years of having your green card. With the military rule, not only do you apply for citizenship, you get to completely skip that removal of conditions. So you can go from having a 2-year card to becoming a citizen within a few months. Whereas someone that does not join the military has to go through that 2-year requirement, file for removal of conditions within those 2 years, wait another year to meet the 3-year requirement to apply for citizenship, and then go through an interview for the removal of conditions and the citizenship before they can be approved. But if you are in the military and you're applying under this military rule, you can skip the 2-year requirement for removal of conditions completely and go from 2 years, skip over the removal of conditions, and go straight to citizenship. So when I say the third one is a game changer, and I have seen this change my clients' lives, going from green card to citizenship without having to do the I-751 removal of condition, without having to wait 3 years because they're married to a U.S. citizen, or 5 years for the general basic eligibility. It's a game changer. Now, I'm not telling you to join the military just to become a citizen, but I am saying if you are already thinking about joining the military, know that this rule exists and it is going to be helpful to you. All right. So those are the 3 timelines that you can be on. Either the general timeline of 5 years, the marriage timeline of 3 years, or the military timeline of whenever you finish your basic training. Okay. So those are the 3 timelines. And if you are trying to figure out if you qualify, if you were outside of the US for a few months or a year, and you want to know how do I, get back on track and make sure that I can qualify for citizenship, how do I know that I qualify for citizenship, please feel free to schedule a strategy session with me. It's a free 15-minute time for us to discuss your situation, tell you if you qualify, and how we may be able to help you with the process. If you want to do that, you can go to my website, lillylegal.com, and click on Contact Us, where you can select a date and time that works best for you for us to speak. You can also call my office at 508-443-1788. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you. And make sure to click on this one so that you can see what a naturalization interview entails and what you can expect at your naturalization interview.